Today we're checking in on Justin Fields' dynasty value, and you might be surprised. Thanks for listening to today's Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Today's episode of Locked On Dynasty is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at Williamson NFL. Matt, how are you today?
Things are good. How about you?
Yeah, things are good here as well. We talked yesterday about the trade deadline in our leagues. So to me, that's always kind of a sign that the end is near. And that's good in some ways. It's bad in some ways. We've got I guess we have about a month left in the regular season, fantasy regular season, before the playoffs begin. So it certainly feels like crunch time. Matt, it's Wednesday. We're talking player value in dynasty leagues, as we always do. A little bit of a different spin today. I know yesterday we talked about those trade targets for dynasty contenders, and we were mostly shopping in the bargain bin. I want to look at three more valuable, more expensive players, and just kind of get your thoughts on these three guys. Each of these players have had a change, I would say, in recent weeks, and just want to get your thoughts on those players moving forward. We'll look at some actual trades that have happened with those players and try to decide if we're buying or selling at those prices.
I like it.
Matt, let's start with the name I've already mentioned. It's the name that's mentioned on basically every fantasy football podcast over the past 3 or 4 weeks. It is Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields. And it still seems, despite how well he played, how just crazy the fantasy numbers have been, multiple QB1 games or back-to-back QB1 games overall in the past 2 weeks. I guess depends on your scoring system. He might be over 40 fantasy points, might be just under, but regardless, pretty lofty territory for Justin Fields. And despite all that, there's still a lot of doubters out there, a lot of naysayers, a lot of people looking at the lack of passing yards, the inefficiency, and those things are still there. But there's some people that are not quite believers in Justin Fields. So where do you stand in general on the player and his future? Let's say the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, besides Lawrence, he was my favorite quarterback in that draft. And obviously there were some struggles. Contrary to popular belief, I don't think he's a natural runner. Now, that doesn't mean he's not a great runner. He's a tremendous runner. But I think he's a pocket passer by nature and runs when he has to, especially going back to his Ohio State days. So that kind of had to be coached into him as he learns the finer points of quarterbacking from the pocket, which frankly, I think he still has a very long way to go. But I think he's a good passer. I think he's smart. I think he's tough. He's obviously a tremendous athlete. You don't listen to this to figure that out. And their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, actually, I know Luke. He was a quarterback when I was at Pitt, way back when. It shows how old I am. And then when I moved to Akron, we took Luke with us as Charlie Fry's replacement. And really smart. I call him young. He's not young anymore. I think of him as a 20-year-old. But I think Luke and Justin took a little while to get to know each other. A second-year quarterback and a first-year coordinator, in a new city for Getsy, not exactly dripping with great talent in Chicago either. But they're starting to really get it, which is wonderful. I like Fields much more for fantasy than real life, which means I adore him in fantasy. Real life, I don't know that he's out of the woods yet, though, But I like him.
You say he's not out of the woods. Do you think it's safe to assume that he is Bear starter for the next 3 years? Or are you not there yet?
No, I'm not there yet. I mean, next year guaranteed. probably for the next 3 to 10, but what he's doing from an NFL standpoint to me isn't sustainable. I mean, you need to drop back on 3rd and 8 and drill dig routes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, we said these same things about Lamar Jackson and about
Allen and
Jalen Hurts as well,
yep,
right?
Yep,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I mean, each of those players to some degree have improved as passers. Your point that, in your opinion, Fields is a more natural passer and running a secondary, that seems like a great thing to me to hear from a scout.
I 100% agree. He's a better natural passer than Lamar. It sounds strange to say Allen, but he's much more accurate at his age than Allen was, or certainly Hurts.
Well, let's look at some dynasty trades involving Justin Fields. And, I teased at the top that we might be surprised with these trades. I was surprised. These are all actual trades that have been completed in dynasty leagues, all Superflex dynasty leagues. And I mean, to me, I don't know, maybe this is a mistake on my part, but when a player is as hot as Fields has been on this crazy streak over the past 5 or 6 weeks, I usually don't even try to buy that player, right?
Yeah,
I
hear you saying.
I just assume the price is going to be through the roof, and that's understandable. But a lot of people would say that's the worst time to buy. So I usually don't even try. Here are 3 recent trades, all of these within the last week, and some of them were before the past games, but still all within the last week or so. Justin Fields for Terry McLaurin and Matthew Stafford in a Superflex Dynasty League.
That blows me away.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. We obviously McLaurin's a very good receiver, good dynasty asset if you've got him on your team. But I mean, we're talking Justin Fields. We're talking about a first-round dynasty startup pick in this Superflex format. Matthew Stafford clearly trending in the wrong direction in his career, both short term and long term. I just don't get it. If you could get Fields for that, run to do that. The other 2 trades that I've pulled here are not quite that bad, but still, I think are slam dunks. Justin Fields for Michael Pittman, 2023 first and 2023 third. And I mean, as we always say on here, yeah, it's not enough. We don't know the ins and outs of these specific leagues. If that looks like it's the 101 and you're getting Pittman and the 101, then that's obviously a lot closer. Right, but treating these as random first, it's Pittman, a first and a third, easy deal to make.
Easy.
Last one, Derek Carr and a first rounder for Fields. Like I said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should be shopping or at least finding out what the price is for Justin Fields. And these are not cherry picked, Matt. This is kind of the examples of what he's going for. There were not any, 4 first rounders for Fields or Fields for Patrick Mahomes type deals. Those were not out there, at least that I've seen. So really surprised. Yeah, really surprised to see the trade value of Justin Fields after the way that he's been playing. So don't be afraid to ask the price. I guess that would be my lesson on that.
Yeah,
Matt, when we come back. Yeah.
Wow.
When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. We'll talk about a couple other players and their new trade value.
First, let me tell you about Turo. Turo is the world's largest sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget. Book an SUV or minivan for a family road trip, a pickup truck for some errands, or even test drive an EV if you want, Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions do apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Folks, I also want to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business, but you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I have a lot of buddies that have used LinkedIn Jobs. They love it. It's phenomenal for hiring as well as you're looking for jobs as well. There's simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rated LinkedIn Jobs #1 at delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your jobs for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Let's continue the conversation about updated trade value. I mentioned some changes involving each of these players with Field. That change is obviously just unleashing him, letting him run the ball more than he did earlier in the season or last year. But with this guy, this next player, the change is more obvious. Christian McCaffrey, new running back for the San Francisco 49ers. We've seen him in a 49ers uniform a couple times now, and I don't think we talked about this yet this week or at all. Sunday's game was kind of interesting. We saw Elijah Mitchell come back. We saw McCaffrey and Mitchell split the touches, split the workload, both touched the ball 20 times. Mitchell, obviously, with the advantage on the ground, and McCaffrey seeing more targets and receptions. Does that change anything? Does Sunday's game change anything on your outlook for McCaffrey for the rest of this season?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's not super shocking, but I think McCaffrey is a weapon. I'm putting that in quotes, air quotes, that he might be closer to Wes Welker than Derrick Henry. You know what I mean? It's a wide spectrum there, but Mitchell is going to get the 10 to 18 inside zone downhill carries, and McCaffrey will get some, but I don't know that he's going to be a high volume player. I think he'll catch a ton of passes, but is 10 carries a game about what we're shooting for here? I think that might be Shanahan's move.
It's so tough with this San Francisco offense. They obviously have so many playmakers. We've seen really George Kittle kind of take a back seat this entire season. He hasn't produced like he has in the past. Deebo Samuel has taken a step back, certainly since the McCaffrey trade. It's not enough footballs to go around for this team.
No, that's the thing. They have too many good players. It's a great Niner problem to have. Not great for fantasy.
But it's really not translating to success on the field. I mean, they got the win in week 10, but this is still a team that's
around
trying to figure it out, I would say. Yeah. Well, let's look at McCaffrey's value.
One other quick note, Ryan, is
sure.
You got to think Lance is the starter starting next year going forward. Well, is that even less carries for McCaffrey?
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good question.
Probably.
I would say the way Garoppolo has played, and not to mention his contract situation, that he can't be tagged and all of those stipulations in his contract. I do think Lance is still the favorite, or has maybe regained the status as the favorite to be the starter next year and moving forward. So, some trades involving Christian McCaffrey. There were multiple examples of Christian McCaffrey for Jonathan Taylor, even up 1-for-1 trade.
Really?
CMC for JT. Which one do you want in a dynasty league?
Taylor, because of age, and he has had a pretty nice week too. Taylor.
I'm with you. I think one of those trades, I said there were several. I believe one was after the Week 10 games. So after we saw Taylor come back, and the other two or three were before that. So
Okay.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that after that Week 10 game. Next one, McCaffrey plus Marvin Jones, a throw in at this point, for a 2023 first, a 2024 first, and a couple of fourth rounders. So essentially this deal is McCaffrey for 2 first rounders. Where are you at with that one?
Generic first rounders. I think I'll take the picks. Obviously, this has a lot to do with your team makeup, but yeah, I think the picks are more valuable.
Exactly. I think that this is a situation where the status of each team really tells the story, and maybe we can figure that out from the trade actually happening, right? This is almost certainly a contender cashing in a couple of picks for a hope at a title and a potential run at a title. Yeah,
probably know where I am in this next one then too.
Yeah, the next one is
pretty strong.
A surprise. Next one's a surprise for me. Last trade, 2 first rounders for McCaffrey, except this time, along with those first rounders, you get Garrett Wilson. If we liked the picks for McCaffrey, imagine what a landslide this one is. 2 first rounders plus Garrett Wilson for Christian McCaffrey. I mean, honestly, even if I've got a contender, Matt, I think cashing out at that point, taking the picks and the youth. If I'm in first place in my league and the second place manager sends me that, I'm clicking accept and figuring out running back after that. Right. I'll go get Jeff Wilson or Deontay Foreman or
somebody we talked about
Patterson.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Some of those names we threw out yesterday. Very good.
That's the kind of offer, like you put McCaffrey on the trade block, hit send, someone immediately emails you, what do you want for McCaffrey? I'm like, I'm going to ask for the moon. Now, how about Wilson and 2 firsts? And then he says, yes. I'm like, okay.
So I think with Christian McCaffrey, we saw the value spike a little bit after that trade. And I think, we're not alone here. We're a little concerned about Elijah Mitchell, about the amount of touches he's going to get, and really just the overall efficiency of that 49ers offense, which typically has been very good, but not so much the past few weeks. So that's very interesting, adding McCaffrey to that offense.
Yeah.
It's crazy to say it hasn't changed much, but that's actually kind of how it feels.
No, I agree with you.
Matt, when we come back, we'll talk about one more player whose value has changed in recent weeks.
Guys, Bet Online is the only place I place any bets. They're phenomenal. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. You'd be amazed how many different things you can bet on, from football, of course, to basketball, to soccer, to esports. We've got it all on betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Last player we will be talking about today, and this is, Matt, this is the one I was most interested to hear your take on. Not only the player, but the situation in general, is Tony Pollard. Ezekiel Elliott has missed the past 2 weeks for the Dallas Cowboys. Pollard has served as the starter and has been fantastic. I guess a little bit of a step back on Sunday against the Packers, but that first game in week 8, I believe it was, and then we even saw Pollard as the starter in one game last season where he put up big numbers as well. But we all know the story here. This team is a little stubborn when it comes to Zeke Elliott, and we continue to hear that if he's healthy, he's the starter. He's the one that's going to see the bulk of the workload. That makes it a challenge for dynasty managers who certainly want this guy on the roster, but that comes with a little bit of risk because of how the team and honestly the ownership might handle the backfield.
Without question. I mean, he's an excellent football player. He's putting up numbers, as you mentioned. It's all just about opportunity. Jerry's going to not go away from Zeke. But what about next year? I mean, I know Zeke's a big contract. I don't know what the ramifications were if they were to release him. But I bet they would go get a 230-pound back if they did in the third round or something. I think they view Pollard, and I mostly agree with this, as not a satellite back, but a better version of that, a change of pace plus. And he's a really good one. I just don't trust that coaching staff ownership to do the right thing and give him the ball when everyone's healthy. Enough.
Yeah, I get that as well. And again, that's the risk if you're going out to acquire Tony Pollard.
I don't want him to be a flex,
Right. And these trades, I don't know, maybe it's representative of the situation because they are all over the board when it comes to Tony Pollard's trade value. We'll start at the low end, the very low end, do not accept this trade. Tony Pollard for David Bell and a 4th rounder.
Oh, I saw that David Bell. I'm like, who's D Bell? It can't be David, right? And a 4th?
It's David Bell. David Bell plus a 4th rounder.
Not even close.
Yeah. This one is not even worth discussing.
Right.
Bell has been getting some run as the Browns' 3rd/4th wide receiver. He's on the field kind of more than I expected him to be, honestly, this season, but hasn't necessarily stood out in a positive way. I don't get this one at all.
No.
I hope
in fact, Matt Harmon just put out his midseason rookie reception perception, destroyed Bell. I mean, just killed him. Not good at all.
Let's skip ahead because this one is more relevant. It's certainly a more fair deal, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this one. Tony Pollard for George Pickens, 1-for-1.
I think I went Pickens here, because in 2 years, I don't think this deal's close. I mean, if you need a back for the rest of the season, sure, Pollard's worth more. I just think in 2 years, this one isn't close.
I guess that is one of my problems with running backs like Tony Pollard, and not anything about the player or the talent in general, but just the chasing that backup running back, right? And a lot of times it seems that by the time that the player is actually getting a shot, he's almost aged out. I mean, Tony Pollard, we look at him and think of him as a young player, and certainly by most measures, he is still young, but he's 25 and a half years old. Even if Zeke were to go away, if they cut Zeke this offseason and Tony Pollard got the starting job next year, he's a 26-year-old running back. I mean,
right now we're looking at the time to sell
26-year-old. Right. We're looking at 26-year-old running backs like Nick Chubb and Kamara, and I think Kamara might even be 27 now. Mixon, and we're thinking, oh, we got to cash out. We got to get rid of these guys, and say what you will about that mindset and that strategy. That's kind of the reality of the running back position. So even if things go perfectly for Tony Pollard and he's handed that starting job this offseason, then what is your upside?
Yeah. I think of Alexander Madison and think that guy never got his shot, and now he's going to be a free agent, and someone's going to pay him a little bit of money to be a backup still, and you never got that year out of him,
Yeah, I remember there were some good examples. Some good examples of that. Really, in my early days of playing fantasy football, Michael Turner was one of those guys. Multiple year backup that everybody loved. He eventually did get a shot to start, but his starting tenure was not very long because of this exact thing we're talking about. Chester Taylor, you remember that name?
Oh yeah. He's
Chester
stuck
Taylor
behind Peterson. Yeah.
All right, a couple more trades for Tony Pollard. I would be willing to do this one. Tony Pollard for Darren Waller and 4th rounder. Of course, Waller on IR. If I could flip him the late pick for Pollard, I would do that. Last one, Tony Pollard and a 3rd rounder for a 1st. give me that first rounder for sure.
Yeah, this is an ideal time to turn him into a first rounder with a little sugar sprinkled in. I mean, to me, this is my favorite deal of the group. I mean, the Pickens one too, but yes, I am definitely making that move, and I think that's a wise move right now if you own Pollard. Try to do something like that.
That was it for today's show. Please make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe to the Locked On Dynasty channel on YouTube. Remember to follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL. And I'm Ryan MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.